From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Granosky. So glad to be with you again, live on radio, podcast, video stream, where we're happy to have a time of conversation as we look at the news like nobody else does in the business. And I wanted to take a quick moment here while we have this time in the beginning to talk to you about a new film that we have that'll be coming out. We not only do On a Neighbor's Choice, we not only do live radio Monday through Friday, and that's also video stream. I know some of you listen to us on video, watch us on video. And some of you listen on our podcast, which has every radio episode broken down by hour. We do 2 hours live, Monday through Friday. And we're happy to have our flagship station, WHBO 1040 News Talk Florida, live on the drive time. If you want to call in, you can at 727-587-1040. But we also have a wonderful international audience that continues to provide us fantastic information and perspectives that we incorporate into this broadcast, as it is a team effort. It is a community effort that makes this product work, that makes the show exciting, it makes the show dynamic, a living, breathing show, because we're working together, committed to personhood, not tribalism, right? Personhood is where we respect every individual human person, and we don't make life flippant. We don't make life cheap for some kind of power. That's a shortcut to heaven that leads to hell. No, we are about personhood, and that means taking responsibility for our own lives, not expecting others to be forced into doing what we want them to do, not expecting others to bail us out when we make mistakes. Whether we're a corporation or an individual, we have to take care of ourselves. But at the same time, we have an obligation to do what we can to take care of our neighbor. So we do the radio show, we do the video stream, we do the podcast, we have exclusive articles on aneighborschoice.com. And then we also do the podcast called Things Hidden. Our latest episode is up now at aneighborschoice.com. Go there now to watch the discussion with Jonathan Pajot and I, who is a popular YouTube host of the Symbolic World program. That's on aneighborschoice.com. But we also, in addition to the podcast, the radio show, the exclusive articles, we also do films. And the film series we do is called Things Hidden as well. So, Things Hidden, the film series, we've had a few episodes where we have these conversations in a very beautiful, interesting format, beautiful ideas, interesting stories, life lessons from an eclectic cast of characters that I get to interact with in person. And that just is a lot of fun for people. People like cinema, people like film. And I am a fan of film, and I like to be able to use and merge the genres of podcast and film together. So if you haven't seen it, type in, Things Hidden film series, or go and look on aneighborschoice.com. If you have time right now, go to aneighborschoice.com, and you'll see where you can watch the series. Okay? So you're going to want to see that, because that's where we do our film series. And that's something that you can look forward to, because we have a new one coming. We have a new Things Hidden film series coming out with some really special guests. And I'll be talking about those guests later on. But the new Things Hidden film will premiere on our website, aneighborschoice.com, as well as YouTube. And we'll put it on BitChute and Rumble for those who watch the content there. And it'll also be available as an audio podcast But our new Things Hidden film will come out this Friday, and it's going to be a great one. I mean, it's just amazing cinematography, amazing ideas, and just the mood and atmosphere. There's nothing else like it. You can call it a cinematic podcast, whatever genre, documentary radio. There's all kinds of terms I could put at it. It's something new that we've been pioneering on this show, and we'll continue to develop it. But this new Things Hidden film will come out. It'll premiere this Friday. So for those of you in the failed states of New York and California and other places where they have night at 5 o'clock, can't go out, you'll have something to watch. Things Hidden, the new film, will premiere this Friday on aneighborschoice.com. So that'll be fun, and I'll talk about it more throughout the week as we build up to that. But it is something that I'm very excited about because we want to have multimedia. We want to have not just audio, not just live radio, not just, the video interviews, not just articles, but also film. Long-form film is fun. Long-form film has a certain power and magic to it when you're able to do it right. And we're just going to continue to build on that. In other news, NPR is excited to report, for the first time, United States and Chinese scientists have created embryos that are part human, part monkey, in an effort to find new ways to produce organs for transplants. But some ethicists worry about how such research could go wrong. What could possibly go wrong? It's probably being done in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I mean, that's where all the geniuses go to do their research, right? So they probably put all the U.S. and Chinese scientists, they've got some kind of little pangolin Pokemon guy running around right now in the basement of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and he's ready to go out and got to catch them all. And that's what you have to deal with here. When we have geniuses like Dr. Fauci with zero skin in the game and all the money that they can take from you, they can do all kinds of fun, exciting things. What could possibly go wrong? Nothing could ever happen. Wuhan Institute of Virology, top A+++, no problems. They said there were some cables that the State Department released saying, hey, watch out, don't ever do gain-of-function research on there. But I'm sure they'll take care of it just fine. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they're doing this, but they found a way to put human cells into monkey embryos to find new ways to produce organs. Sounds like Matrix, right? But, there's always in the ancient world, there are always these stories of undifferentiation, of half man, half horse, half goat, half this, half that, half this, right? Those are always a sign of undifferentiation, of a time in which chaos was reigning, a time in which people did not have a sense of self. They did not have a sense of boundaries, healthy self-ownership, none of that. They just get lost in a sea of undifferentiated envy and passion and desire. And in those moments, the ancient communities recorded those events with symbols of man mixed with beast and nature and so on and so forth. And so it's just strange how I can't think of a more undifferentiated time in world history than the time in which we're in. And Q, right on time, we've got the best researchers in the world putting monkey and human embryo together. Now, of course, people want to sensationalize that and turn it into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But at the end of the day, there's nothing to worry about because, government and these scientists with total monopoly, no skin in the game, nothing could ever go wrong. So just totally be cool. And if you see Master Splinter with a mask on in a sewer drainage somewhere, just keep walking. That's the reality we're in today, folks. This is the news as best as we can report on it. And we just have to buckle up and have a great time in the process, right? We cannot allow that stinky, outdated dumb, low energy, low information tribalism infect our minds. We have to be fully in the driver's seat of our conscience and not allowed to be numbed out by the negativity. So important that we maintain a healthy state of mind through everything. And that means loving yourself, because you cannot love anybody if you don't know how to love yourself first. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you have a healthy love of yourself, you'll be able to have a healthy love of your neighbor, because you'll know the reference point to use as your standard for your neighbor. And unfortunately, a lot of people just get hypnotized by a lot of self-hate that the failed government bureaucrats continue to kind of promulgate as their little standard of how things should be. I don't have time for that. I want to have a society where we can have a healthy self-respect, dignity, love, forbearance. All of these things are the things that we all want. And we're going to do everything we can on this broadcast to promote those things as best as we can, and to look through all the toxic news and try to find the good pieces of information to help each other out. So we'll take a quick break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice. We'll get to some more headlines as we continue. Remember, email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Call us at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Or drop us a comment on our YouTube stream. We'll continue in just a moment. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Join Fight TV and SportsTalkFlorida.com live to see the Firestone Grand Prix and St. Pete pre-race show. Hosts include Art Edmonds, Eric Casillas, Viorica Bruni, and Mike Straka. Guests include NTT IndyCar drivers Graham Rahal, Pato O'Ward, Joseph Newgarden, and more. Celebrities from film, food, movies, and TV. Live Sunday morning, April 25th at 10 a.m. on Fight TV and SportsTalkFlorida.com. Plus, hear it live right here on AM 820, 96.7 FM Tampa, and 98.3 FM Pinellas.
Jack Posobiec, One America News. He says breaking jury has reached a verdict in the Chauvin case. Will be read today at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be, I guess, any moment now we'll hear the information on that. And it is a tense time because there's a lot of political and emotional and cultural things all wrapped up into this trial. And I've said it before on this program that there's a problem. I agree with Detective John Beza, who we have on this program, that there's too much militarization of police. We're asking police to be our nannies. I don't believe in a nanny state. I don't believe that we should train, our government agents to use, aggressive force for small petty matters. Like allegedly there was a $20 bill that was the incident that started this. You don't need to use that kind of vicious force for every little thing. I understand both sides have there's all kinds of different sides to this, but there's no reason to be putting that kind of those kind of heavy-handed tactics when someone is in there for such a minor issue. But what happens when you have all of these things come together is politicians come in. You had Maxine Waters and Joe Biden trying to, make a political spin on it. They want to be pandering. They want to look like they are doing something to help people who are tired of the injustices of this justice system. That's what they do. And it stirs up a lot of pain, a lot of suspicion and other kind of negative emotions. And nobody actually deals with the root cause, which is you should get rid of these victimless crime laws. We should get rid of the police militarization. We should stop asking police to be nannies. They should be dealing with real crimes, theft, violence, burglary, assault, fraud, And yes, if there was something with a $20 bill, deal with it. But you don't deal with that level of aggression for $20 bills. You don't do that. And if someone looks like they're not healthy and they're not in a good state, you don't have to play that. You don't have to play things that way. And we need to have a different kind of a way of policing. I think competition is good. I think competition brings out the best of people when it can also bring out the worst. I'll put that too. But when it comes to services, if you have a legal monopoly, it's much harder to do a great job when you have a legal monopoly, right? Go look at the DMV. Go look at anything that takes for granted the fact that they have their job at your expense without you having any say in the matter. You're just going to have a lack of quality in the attention to the details and the concerns of the quality of the job done and so forth. So, but that's what we're dealing with. At the same time, we have a lot of corporations that continue to reveal their true colors, that they are totally politically engaged and they have one monolithic narrative that they want to adhere to. And so I saw this story in populist.press from Rick Scott, the senator here in Florida, where he wrote a letter. It says Rick Scott sends a brutal warning to woke corporations about day of reckoning. And here's a quote from it. And yes, the Georgia law requires an ID to vote. Well, so does Delta Airlines and so does Major League Baseball in order to pick up tickets. It's not that you have twisted the truth. You have rejected the truth. Worse, you do not care what is true. And that's Senator Rick Scott talking to Dear Woke Corporate America. So he says, amazingly, the woke liberal corporate news media is just as dishonest as you. They support your lies. And the president of the United States, Joe Biden, shows you the way. He demonstrates how to lie in public and get away with it. And goes on to say, your latest attempts to hurt Georgia's economy will help us do something that is long overdue, make corporate welfare a thing of the past. There will be no number of well-connected lobbyists you can hire to save you. There will be no amount of donations you can make that will save you. There will be nowhere for you to hide. It turns out that power does corrupt, and you have become corrupt. American taxpayers will soon stop tolerating your lies, your attempts to denigrate them, and your attempts to control the way they think, act, and talk. So I hope, these are politicians, so you have to take everything with a big grain, a big amount of salt. But we can only hope that there's some reality behind this, because corporate welfare should be completely eliminated. All these regulations that prop up these giant corporations should be done away with immediately. These people do not care about our freedoms. They are signing their names onto corporate fascism. They're signing their names transparently onto dubious election processes, bullying, cancel culture, other kinds of vicious, aggressive bullying. And everybody who's not on board with corporatism should be united in opposition to this stuff. We should stop pretending that the McWoke group has any moral credibility. They don't. They're a bunch of corporatists. They got the TV behind them. They got giant corporations, giant Wall Street companies. That's what's behind McWoke corporatism. Everybody else, whether you're progressive, libertarian, constitutionalist, conservative, populist, whatever, we've got a lot of common ground, because corporatism, McWoke Wall Street, does not care about anybody but their corporatism. Their victim garb corporatism. They want to hide behind victims like human shields while they do everything they can to entrench this rotten system that victimizes everyone. That victimizes the poor, that victimizes those on fixed incomes, that victimizes those who do not have political standing, which is the vast, vast majority of us in this country. As we heard with Colonel Doug McGregor on our program yesterday, these people that talk about social justice, they can't do anything to stop the wars. They do everything to start wars and continually lie in the favor of more and more wars. That's what the DC establishment stands for. They have no place to lecture any of us about what is social justice. These people do nothing to hold Biden accountable for keeping everybody locked up during a pandemic in federal prison for nonviolent victimless crimes. Nothing. They don't care. They're all fake hypocrites. And they have no standing to lecture the vast majority of us who are sick and tired of their corporatism. So we just have to speak out, and I hope that Rick Scott makes good on his promise to challenge the corporate welfare. Good place to start. Back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
Find the best coverage of Florida sports all in one place.
SportsTalkFlorida.com covers all the Florida teams you know and love, with in-depth interviews, original coverage, and insight on the team that makes the news in Florida.
Whether it's the Bucks, Lightning, Rays, Jags, Dolphins, Marlins,
Sports Talk Florida has got you covered.
or any of our college teams like the Knowles, Gators, Bulls, Canes, or Knights, you can find it all at SportsTalkFlorida.com.
Sports Talk Florida has got you covered. SportsTalkFlorida.com.
Court between 4:30 and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Derek Chauvin faces 3 charges: second-degree and third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. Mark Remillard, ABC News, Minneapolis.
People also are gathering outside the courthouse and in the neighborhood where Floyd died. ABC's Kenneth Moten has more from Minneapolis.
We understand a crowd is gathered at 38th in Chicago where this incident happened on May 25th. We also understand that near the courthouse, very close to the courthouse grounds, there's a section for demonstrators. There's a growing crowd there as well. We have seen demonstrations in the city several days over the course of this trial.
Across the country, police also stepping up security. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gornosky. We're live, and we continue to challenge the toxic groupthink wherever we find it. Here's this story I saw. The Association of UK Dietitians, they put out a position statement. So this is the Association of United Kingdom Dietitians about their position on processed food. Those at risk of malnutrition will benefit from energy-dense foods. Therefore, the inclusion of processed foods with higher levels of fat and sugar may be useful to increase intakes of energy. So these are groups that are positioned by government and the media, which is basically one and the same mimetic groupthink cadre, to be authorities. And what they're telling you is, and that's why the United Kingdom continues to suffer from so many diseases, is because they have hacks that pretend to be neutral scientists who are actually just PR firms for special interest corporations. And we're sick and tired of it. We're not going to be lectured to by these liars anymore. Our health is at stake. We are not going to allow people to sell us disinformation and pseudoscience trash about what should be good for our bodies. We need to get away from the vegetable oils, get away from the processed flours, the processed sugars. You can have, good things that taste delicious. I'm not telling you a diet. I'm telling you the human diet, okay? This is not a diet we're talking about. We're talking about eating what humans were meant to eat, which is not the toxic industrial processed sludge toxic oils. It's repulsive. It's disgusting. And these bigots don't tell you anything about the truth of the matter. And so we are going to create the new media conversation, and millions of people are already waking up. We're just going to keep making it more and more mainstream. That's why we spend the time investing our time and effort and energy to bring these ideas not just to the podcast world, but to the broadcast world, right into the heart of broadcast media. And that's what we do on radio and so on. So we're gonna get into some of these stories. I want to look at this story about Officer Brian Sicknick, the man who the media used for horrible purposes. They used him to create a narrative to try to criminalize people that disagree with him. And they tried to create a narrative that anybody who disagrees with him is a terrorist, and anybody who likes Donald Trump or questions the integrity of the election process in 2020, that they're a monster and that you should never, 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 never give them any humanity again. And they use this man's death as a kind of narrative to create a sacrificial narrative by which they could scapegoat 75 million people who had just voted for a man who disagrees with the outcome of the election. And so this is Glenn Greenwald, who is a great journalist. The title of his latest Substack is "The Media Lied Repeatedly About Officer Brian Sicknick's Death, and They Just Got Caught." Just as with the Russia bounty debacle, they will never acknowledge what they did. Their audience wants to be lied to for partisan gain and emotional pleasure. It was crucial for liberal sectors of the media to invent and disseminate a harrowing lie about how Officer Brian Sicknick died. That is because he is the only one they could claim was killed by pro-Trump protesters at the January 6th riot at the Capitol. So the New York Times on January 8th published an emotionally gut-wrenching but complete fiction that never had any evidence that Officer Sicknick's skull was savagely bashed in with a fire extinguisher by a pro-Trump mob until he died. And just like the now discredited Russian bounty story, also unveiled by the same paper, cable outlets and other media platforms repeated this lie over and over in the most emotionally manipulative way possible. He goes on, but the gruesome story of Sicknick's murder was too valuable to allow any questioning. It was weaponized over and over to depict the pro-Trump mob not as just violent, but barbaric and murderous, because if Sicknick weren't murdered by them, then nobody was. Without Sicknick, the only ones killed were 4 pro-Trump supporters, 2 who died of a heart attack, 1 from an amphetamine overdose, and the other, Ashley Babbitt, who was shot point blank in the neck by Capitol Police by the Capitol Police despite being unarmed. So crucial was this fairy tale about Sicknick that it made its way into the official record of President Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate. And they had Joe Biden himself recite from the script, even as clear facts mounted proving it was untrue. Because of its centrality to the media narrative and agenda, anyone who tried to point out the serious factual deficiencies in this story, in other words, people trying to be journalists, were smeared by Democratic Party loyalists who pretend to be journalists as Sicknick truthers, white nationalists, sympathizers, and supporters of insurrection. For the crime of trying to determine the factual truth of what happened, my character, this is Glenn Greenwald talking, was constantly impugned by these propagandistic worms, as was anyone else's who tried to tell the truth about Sicknick's tragic death. Because one of the first people to highlight the journalistic truth here was former Trump official Darren Beattie of Revolver News, and one of the few people on television willing to host doubts about the official story was Tucker Carlson. Any doubts about the false Sicknick story, no matter how well grounded in truth, facts, reason, and evidence, were cast as fascism and white supremacy, and those raising questions smeared as truthers, the usual dreary liberal insults for trying to coerce people into submitting to their lies. And he shows all these screenshots of them calling him names and these slanders. Because the truth usually prevails, at least ultimately their lies yet again all came crashing down on their heads on Monday. The District of Columbia's chief medical examiner earlier this morning issued his official ruling in the Sicknick case, and it was so definitive that the Washington Post, one of the media outlets that had pushed the multiple falsehoods, did not even bother to try to mask or mitigate the stark conclusion it revealed. The first line tells much of the story. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick suffered 2 strokes and died of natural causes a day after he confronted rioters at the January 6th insurrection, the district chief medical examiner has ruled. Using understatement, the paper added, the ruling, released Monday, likely will make it difficult for prosecutors to pursue homicide charges in the officer's death. This definitive finding from the medical examiner not only rids us of the fire extinguisher lie, but also the second theory to which these media outlets resorted once they had to face the reality that they spent weeks spreading an outright lie. Needless to say, they provided no real accountability or even acknowledgement for the fact that they did spread that fire extinguisher tale, instead just seamlessly moving to their next evidence-free claim. They changed their story to claim that pro-Trump protesters still murdered Sicknick, not with a fire extinguisher, but with a bear spray, which video shows at least one protester using in his vicinity. The problem with that theory is that bear spray is not usually fatal, and the medical examiner's findings ruled out the possibility that this is what caused his death. So there goes that second fairy tale. So, he just goes on and on in this story. I like reading his stuff because it's so nice to have at least one journalist. There's a few out there, that tell the truth, and they just cut through the lies in very powerful ways. And I always like to highlight their work because it's so refreshing to have real journalists in the wilderness out there, doing the work that these fake journalists don't want to do. They don't want to talk about reality. All they want to do is talk about negativity and demonization and narratives that give their team more power. And that's just not something that we should accept. We should not accept that in journalism. We should reject those media outlets completely, and they should go bankrupt. We're tired of these liars. They are not journalists. They are not journalists. And they don't care anything about the truth. All they care about is just selling narratives that help the powerful. And it's so great to see them always fall on their own weight of their own lies and continue to make fools of themselves. But we just have to make sure these outlets are not given any more traction in terms of their ability to be treated with any seriousness. Here's a story. Also, this is populist.press, says Stanford Med says Facebook masks are ineffective to block transmission of COVID-19. A recent Stanford study released by NCBI, which is under the National Institutes of Health, showed that masks do absolutely nothing to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, and their use is even harmful. Read the full report at the National Library of Medicine, Institutes of Health. Many countries across the globe utilize medical and non-medical face masks as non-pharmaceutical intervention for reducing the transmission and ineffectivity of the coronavirus. Although scientific evidence supporting face mask efficacy is lacking, adverse physiological, psychological, and health effects are established. It has been hypothesized that face masks have compromised safety and efficacy profile and should be avoided from use. The current article comprehensively summarizes scientific evidences with respect to wearing face masks in the COVID-19 era, providing proper information for public health and decision making. So just showing you that there continues to be more science and papers published that just totally poke holes all over their fake little bully tactics. I mean, if they're going to lie to you and tell you, oh, this person was murdered by Trump supporters when they had zero evidence to say that, then what makes you think they won't lie to you about whether you should wear a mask or 10 masks or whatever? They just say whatever they want, They just say whatever. That's all they do. They just say whatever they want. They don't care. All that matters is that they want you to perceive them to be authoritative voices so that you can go along with their little political worship. They want to worship the state. They want the state to be an all-powerful controller of the whole world's foreign all governments are going to be decided by DC and their buddies in Wall Street and the banks. All of the countries that don't bow to them will be regime replaced. All, health decisions, they'll divvy out the loot to their big pharmaceutical buddies. All nutrition stuff will be given to the subsidized corporations that make fake food and garbage slop. And it goes on and on and on from there. And we're just not going to listen to these bullies anymore. They're totally discredited, which is wonderful because we're in a wonderful world now where so many people, the vast majority, I would say, are starting to realize, as even the phony polls seem to suggest, that the media has totally discredited itself. So now we have an opportunity to actually have an honest conversation about all these different issues, issue by issue, with our neighbors, and bring people along towards a path of liberty, health, and abundance. That's what we all want. We want to have a more brighter future for our family than what we had. We want to make something better for our grandkids, and it starts with having an honest press. So important to have an honest media, and you're a part of that media. You're a part of making that media what it is and what it is not. And hopefully we can move beyond this era of failed corporate McWoke journalism fast as possible, because it's in our own interest. It's in the interest of the vulnerable that we stop playing games with the truth and stop using, again, the perception that we're supposed to be, all these narratives they always do are all about hiding behind victims to sell powerful people's interests. It's just not going to be accepted anymore. I think enough people are waking up. This program's just one piece of it. So many, many programs are going to be coming out, many different voices, great art, great media, and that's what we're going to continue to promote. So we'll take a quick break and return with more news. I'm David Gornosky. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. You can drop a comment on our YouTube stream or call us at 727-587-1040. Back in a second.
David Gornosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals, join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Hello, this is David Gornosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida. Or go to whiteoakpastures.com and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
What's better than a stimulus check? Another stimulus check. If you have full coverage insurance, you qualify for up to $150 cash back for your broken windshield. Auto Glass America will install a premium quality replacement with a lifetime warranty at no cost to you. Wherever you are, Auto Glass America comes to you with free mobile service. Make your money go farther with Auto Glass America. 813-96-GLASS. That's 813-96-GLASS. Auto Glass America.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gornosky. We continue now. I wanted to talk about, since we were on the issue of how much the media has just discredited itself, people continue to see this not only just in news media, but in entertainment media. Jack Posobiec, again, I've had him on the program multiple times, and he has a different political philosophy than I would say I have, but we have a common desire to see an end to wars and an honesty in media and free speech and protection of family values and so forth and so on. But he has this, he posted this anonymous post that I just thought, illustrates kind of some of this, let's just call it what it is, propaganda that the media does. It says the subject of John Oliver came up when a colleague, a fellow psychologist, and I were discussing politics a few months ago. Although we were both in agreement regarding the general lib inanity of the HBO show, referring to John Oliver's show, my friend was surprised when I explained that the real insidiousness of it is its unmistakably hypnotic structure and pacing. I ended up pulling up an episode or two off of YouTube to show her what I meant. All the segments I've ever seen from this show follow the same repetitive format. Present some argumentation, quote unquote, and facts for about 10 seconds. Then quickly follow these up with a snarky quip, which themselves overwhelmingly take the form of complete non sequitur or otherwise absurd metaphor before any rational processing of the preceding argument can take place in the mind of the viewer. Further telling is that the only beats or mental pauses in the show's pacing exist solely to highlight the approving laughter or applause of the studio audience. Repeat this basic formula without variation 20 to 40 times in a row, and you have one of the 12 to 20 minute segments that form the backbone of the show. The end effect is obviously not to deliver information, but rather to literally teach the viewers on a subconscious level to mentally associate derisive laughter with any person or opinion that is at odds with the narrative's take on the chosen issue. And it accomplishes this by maintaining a strict adherence to a roughly 20-second cycle in which a stimulus is presented and a response is cued. This is the sense in which the show is fundamentally hypnotic in effect, even more so than its precursors in the genre, like Daily Show and Colbert, etc. To my mind, Oliver's show is representative of the media's increasing mastery of the methodologies of mass conditioning. In fact, it is almost such a perfect technical accomplishment that I would almost have to admire it on technical grounds, which moreover is in the hands of the entirely wrong people. Well, I mean, this kind of stuff goes back decades and decades of people trying to find out how to, manipulate people's emotions. Advertisers do this to get you excited about wanting to desire stuff and buy stuff. And it just continues to be something that is all too commonplace, where people are just trying to manipulate people and take the opportunity to basically prime people emotionally for, again, special interests, people that want people in chaos, people who want people to be in states of chaos and then states of passivity, states of distraction, states of chaos and anger. It just totally toyed with. And it works to a certain extent, but I think it's increasingly losing its power the more we have decentralized media voices kind of coming out and pointing out things that were kind of harder to see before. So this isn't something that happened in the last decade. Media manipulation has been happening for decades and decades and decades and decades. And again, as I like to point out, the media itself is a vestige of the priestly caste. Mediator is where we get this concept, right? The priestly caste is the ones that would tell people what the gods want, which is just the old version of what we call ideologies and elites, or whatever you want to call it today. They were the ones that basically told you this is the story that makes sense of why we do the rituals, the taboos, the liturgies, the sacrifices that we do. We do all of this because once upon a time, the gods said this and the gods did this, and we commemorate it with this and that and this and that, right? So that's what media does. They are there and they're operating like priestly caste members who basically are just always reiterating the narratives that justify your exploitation by the wannabe gods of our time and the failed ideologies that they hold so desperately to. And that's why we have to have honest media right? Personhood media comes along and says, hey, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to get away with that. We're going to tell the truth. We're going to celebrate humanity. We're going to celebrate diversity of thought. We're going to celebrate nonviolence and creativity and innovation and self-reliance. We're going to celebrate the things that empower us. And we're not going to allow you guys to have a monopoly on conversations, because we're not allowing liars to have that kind of sway over people anymore. So that's the exciting thing about our time. It's a time of a lot of upheaval. It's a time of a lot of, self-reflection for some, and exposure, revelation. That's what, you look at the word apocalypse, that's what it means. It means revealing. Revealing what? Revealing that which was hidden. And what is hidden? What is hidden is that which is baked into mimetic groupthink. Baked, when you have groupthink so baked into all the sacred cows around you. So you don't question the food pyramid. You don't question Keynesian economics. You don't question the way we do policing. We don't question these things, right? We don't question the idea of having nihilism as the normative of how entertainment stories should go. We don't question that so often because it's baked in so much that it kind of numbs us out to how ridiculous it is. But for people who are not as exposed to that kind of Western nihilism, people in other countries or in countries that are closer to keeping more of a local flavor for their culture and entertainment, it's more obvious that this stuff is kind of repulsive, and that we have to see it for what it is and move on from it. We have to move on from it. We cannot keep allowing ABC, CBS, NBC, and so forth to be seen as the kind of official media. We have to replace them with good media, good, honest media. And meanwhile, look at what this is. An American greatness. I'm just seeing this story that the Minneapolis Star Tribune publishes biographical information of Derek Chauvin trial jurors. So it's all that media ever does. These old hacks. They publicize the information of jurors because they like to dominate and intimidate the powerless. And they do that every day. They're bullies. And if there's one thing Americans don't like, it's bullies. And unfortunately, they had good marketing and PR campaigns, these media outlets, because for so long, they've always positioned themselves as the heroes who fight for the underdogs. But in reality, we're seeing what they are. They bully the powerless. They bully the powerless, and they lie for the powerful. That's the glory of the failed corporate press. And we are going to have to build something new. That's what I want to emphasize in this hour today. We have to build something new. That includes you. That's why I invite you guys to help share stories. Email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. Send me those stories. We're going to get to the great remembering, which is our theme about the stories of Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and other companies that the mainstream media has reported in the past, just to let you know the previous narratives that they've had around these outlets. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But for now, we'll say Godspeed and be back in just a few minutes.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. In Minneapolis, a jury of 5 men and 7 women are getting ready to deliver their verdict in the Derek Chauvin murder trial of George Floyd. The public waiting. It comes less than 24 hours after starting deliberations. ABC News senior legal correspondent Sunny Hostin.
I am very surprised, actually, that they reached an agreement in such a high-profile case with 45 witnesses in just a little over 10 hours. That is very unusual.
Derek Chauvin, the former police officer charged with 3 felony counts: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter, stemming from last May when Floyd died in police custody. Chauvin's knee, shown on video, pinned to his neck for more than 9 minutes. ABC's Kenneth Moten is in Minneapolis on the wait for the Floyd family.
We are told by this family that they are in good spirits and they are ready to hear this verdict. Philonise Floyd, George Floyd's brother, was on national TV this morning during an interview saying he is, again, optimistic about this verdict. He felt good about the state's case. He felt good about those closing arguments. He felt good about those state witnesses, from the bystanders to the expert witnesses, the medical experts who took that stand over the course of this 3-week trial and testified about what happened to his brother when Derek Chauvin dug his knee into George Floyd's neck at 38th in Chicago.
Floyd's death sparking protests and unrest across the country last summer. Cities once again ramping up security. ABC's Alex Stone is in Los Angeles.
Here in L.A., like in so many big cities, police are ready for a swift response if violence begins to break out. The sheriff saying he will call in the National Guard quickly if needed. Next door in Beverly Hills, they have all officers on duty and have even hired on private security guards to help police patrol the city, all in anticipation of the verdict.
Health experts say more than half of the U.S. adults have received at least one COVID shot. The concern now, vaccine hesitancy. You're listening to ABC News.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/work. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/work. That's ZipRecruiter.com/work. ZipRecruiter.com/work.
In Europe, health regulators today announced it found the benefits of a Johnson & Johnson COVID shot outweigh risks of possible blood clot links, but they want the company now to add a warning. That J&J vaccine remains on pause until a CDC panel can meet again this week on its review of cases here in the U.S. A new poll revealing how Americans feel about that pause.
The temporary hold on Johnson & Johnson shots doesn't seem to be affecting how people feel about vaccines in general. According to the Axios Ipsos Coronavirus Index, 20% of Americans have no intention of getting any vaccine, but that number hasn't changed since January. Over 90% of those polled were aware of the government's pause of the J&J shots, and nearly that many say they think it was the right decision. The poll indicates 56% of all Americans have now received at least one dose of one of the vaccines.
ABC's Sherry Preston. A new arrest in connection with the January 6th Capitol siege.
At 19, David Schwartzberg of Brooklyn is among the youngest defendants charged in the insurrection. He surrendered to the FBI here in New York to face charges of unlawful entry and disorderly conduct. On January 6th, Schwartzberg was depicted on this recording emerging from the Capitol through a doorway on which someone had scrawled, "Murder the media." Court records said Schwartzberg admitted he wanted to be where the action was and willingly entered the U.S. Capitol through a broken window following his attendance at President Trump's rally. Aaron Katursky, ABC News, New York.
This is ABC News.
Police officer down. Shocking. Cops killed in the line of duty jumped almost 100%. Woke culture. Police defunding. It's a dangerous time. Now Greg Kelly is fighting back on Newsmax TV. Greg's special Cops Under Fire exposes the real threat to you. Watch Newsmax on all major cable systems. Get Newsmax TV free on smart TVs, Roku, Pluto, Zumo, or download the free Newsmax app on your phone. Newsmax is real news.
I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers, Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. Well, as a commenter just said, Jen Kaza just said, the judge has taken the bench. Here we go. We're watching to see what the results will be of the Chauvin trial, which has been gripping the nation. A lot of people are concerned about, what's going to happen to this country on both sides. People feel like there are no safe city. A lot of people are saying, "Oh my goodness, if it goes one way, cities are going to be burning." Other people feel like if this isn't a slam dunk case of murder, then the justice system is going to have a massive reckoning, and there are lots and lots of politicians ready to take advantage of the emotions. And we just heard guilty is what we just heard from Jack Posobiec, and guilty of second-degree murder. And let's see what else comes out here. Just watching this as it happens here. So they find him Derek Chauvin guilty of second-degree murder. That's what I know so far. But yeah, I mean, these issues are going to continue to rise up because we have a situation where police are being used to basically execute nanny state orders. And, it's interesting how Tina just said guilty on all three counts. So that's what we just heard. So it's interesting to see how the partisan tribes in America, they switch sides depending on what the narrative is about the police action that's being challenged. So during the COVID lockdowns, the left wing, the establishment, the corporatists, they were very, very pro-police, arresting people for being on a beach, arresting people for playing in their backyard or doing wrestling matches in their yard. They were very pro-snitching on neighbors and sending armed police to deal with every nonviolent thing you could imagine. We had a gentleman that was arrested for having a card shop and handing cards, selling the tabletop card games in a pickup and a pickup line for cars. And, so many people on the left were just so viciously snarling at arresting and snitching and attacking anybody. If you have a restaurant open, anything they could get you on a victimless crime law, they wanted to sick the whole law against you. But then when a story comes out, which the media paints as a racial story, all of a sudden, the left, just like Pavlov's dogs, they just switch. And now the police need to be defunded, cities need to burn, and anybody and everybody needs to be brought up into this kind of critical theory led narrative. And the truth is, there is a lot of injustice, and there is a lot of there are a lot of systemic oppressive laws, but we have to be able to navigate all of the emotion not to not have emotion. It's okay to have emotion. But so much of television and newspapers are all designed to gear up emotions towards you pushing for more and more statism, more and more state and corporations controlling the discourse, controlling our society. They never push you towards freedom. They never push you towards abolishing bad laws, demilitarization of the police. It's always pushing you towards hating your neighbor and then going to central command and control corporations and governments to get aid, to get justice, to get vengeance. And that's something that is going to continually tear this country apart, because those folks in Washington, they don't have the right answers. Their answers are always worship me and I will protect you. Worship me and I will save you. I will make things right. And that's what human beings have been saying since the dawn of time. They've always been positioning themselves as gods. They've always been positioning themselves as benevolent kings and benevolent dictators that will take care of us from cradle to grave. And it always backfires. And the way that government gets its power is by the power of the crowd. The crowd is the heart of the state. The state needs crowd passion to fuel its enterprises, to fuel its activities. And that's something that will continually be kind of at the heart of the things that fall apart. You know, the things that fall apart around us are based on failed crowd phenomena. When the crowd is pacified, the state is doing its job. When the crowd is angry, and well, sometimes the state is doing its job to send people into the streets too. So it does go both ways. But that's one of the things that people need to understand, is that the crowd is the heart of the state. And when it bubbles up into street violence, it's a mirror of the bureaucratic form of crowd violence that happens every day when everybody is just going along and passively accepting the status quo. And so that's where we're at today. The crowd is a lie, and the heart of the state is the crowd. And so when you see these different politicians, they're going to try to turn this into a narrative this way or that way. And when you see that, just know that it's not for justice. They may whip themselves up into believing that these politicians are in their best interest for justice, but they're not. They're there to capitalize on people's feelings. They're there to capitalize on people's emotions and to cash those emotions into more power. That's the grift of DC. That's the heart of it all. They want power. They don't care about, if they cared about justice, they would be pardoning the nonviolent, harmless folks who are in federal prison under Biden during a pandemic. If they really cared, they'd be doing that, but they don't. They'd be stopping the drug war. They'd be stopping the war on raw milk, right? They'd be stopping all the things that they do to hurt innocent people. They'd be stopping the wars instead of what they're basically doing, which is going to privatize the Afghanistan war. Remember when liberals used to be against the private contractors in Iraq? Remember that was a big deal? Oh, yeah, that's all shady stuff. Yeah. Now, their hero that they love and adore, Joe Biden, his team's going to bring those private contractors to the forefront of what goes on in Afghanistan here going forward. So that's what you get when you listen to liars and you listen to people who don't care about real victims of unjust wars, real victims of unjust drone strikes, real victims of unjust laws, nonviolent crime laws, and so forth. That those victims just get pulverized because the status quo usually stays fully intact when people are listening to politicians for answers. So, Biden and everybody, they were all using their bully pulpit to pressure. They wanted a certain outcome. And as I've had with Detective John Beza on, we believe that the that those officers should be charged with something. Now, there's a debate as to what the charge should be, but it's obvious that I think there was some bad policing going on in that case. But at the same time, to have politicians come in and interact with the jury by putting so much pressure, it does politicize justice. But this isn't the first time that the justice system has been a political tool. This is not new. So hopefully today, justice, was served. I don't know all the facts that were determined in that trial. I do believe that, again, Derek Chauvin should have been charged with something. And I would defer to Detective John Beza, my go-to guy for policing investigations of misconduct, because he always plays it straight with the facts on what those specifics would be. But hopefully that the rest of the country doesn't devolve into violence and so forth as we hear this verdict of guilty. So we'll take a break and continue with more news. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. You can email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com, or drop a comment on YouTube or Facebook video stream, and we'll get back in just a moment.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLSID 1492187, Equal Housing Lender.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
What's better than a stimulus check? Another stimulus check. If you have full coverage insurance, you qualify for up to $150 cash back for your broken windshield. Autoglass America will install a premium quality replacement with a lifetime warranty at no cost to you. Wherever you are, Autoglass America comes to you with free mobile service. Make your money go farther with Autoglass America. 813-96-GLASS. That's 813-96-GLASS. Autoglass America.
Hello, David Kronosky here. We're live on A Neighbor's Choice, and as promised yesterday, we're going to begin this new Great Remembering series where we're going to look at stories in the mainstream, let's call them the corporate press, right? The TV party is what I call them, which is always, kind of changing the narrative on things. They have years and years and years of reports of the giant pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and so forth and so on. Moderna is the newer player, I guess, in this field, of all kinds of bad stuff. So we just want to have an opportunity and use this time together we have on radio to start looking at some of these stories. We're going to start with this clip from Bloomberg about Pfizer and how they agreed to a $2.3 billion drug settlement. This was published in Bloomberg TV. So let's go ahead and play that clip.
Well, Pfizer, the drug maker, will pay a $2.3 billion civil penalty in connection with illegal prescription drug promotions. Justice Department Associate Attorney General Tom Pirelli holding a news conference right now. You see him speaking there on your screen live in Washington. He's announcing the terms of that deal. Now, the allegations involved in this suit dealt with the marketing of its recalled Bextra painkiller and 3 other medicines, including the pain pill Lyrica, the Geodon schizophrenia treatment, and Zyvox, which is used for infections. Pfizer, which makes those drugs, will plead guilty to 1 criminal count stemming from the improper promotion of Bextra, and they'll pay a $1.3 billion penalty. Overall, that drug settlement, as you see there, $2.3 billion.
So that's Bloomberg, one of the loyal statist, corporatist media outlets, always presenting narratives that favor the powerful. But in this case, they told the truth. Pfizer agrees to a $2.3 billion drug settlement in Bloomberg News. And Pfizer, of course, is one of the companies that we're supposed to just totally line up. They have legal immunity with this new gene therapy vaccine. And we're just supposed to just say, you know what? We have nothing at all to have any disagreement. Just totally accept whatever Pfizer wants. They don't even stand by their own product. So here's a story in Forbes, which is a good establishment. A lot of these were sent to us by listener Joanne, so we thank you for that. Mysterious $5 billion biotech Moderna hit with legal setback related to key technology. So this is from February 9th, 2017. A British Columbia judge has issued a ruling that puts in doubt whether Moderna Therapeutics will be able to commercialize some of its first products in clinical trials using key technology that it doesn't own. British Columbia Supreme Court Justice Dev DeLay this week granted a request for a pre-trial injunction that prevents a tiny company called Acuitas from sub-licensing Arbutus's lipid nanoparticle delivery technology until the end of October. They have sub-licensed the technology 4 times to Moderna, which appears to be using it in the first 2 products it has put into clinical trials. So they say that Moderna is a super hot private biotech company that has raised $1.9 billion. That includes deals it has made with big companies like Merck and Alexion and AstraZeneca, and investor cash most recently raised at a valuation of $5 billion. They're developing a new class of mRNA drugs aiming to turn human bodies into drug factories by directing cells to produce therapeutic proteins. But getting the mRNA safely into the body cells is tricky. Acuitas, which is based in its CEO's Vancouver home, sub-licensed one delivery system to Moderna that wraps the mRNA in balls of fat. That delivery system belongs to Arbutus, and last year it terminated Acuitas' license to the technology. Man, they got Arbutus, Acuitas, and it doesn't mean nothing to us. Acuitas originally got the license as a result of a separate legal blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. This story, we'll have to table that for now. But we're just going to keep looking at some of these stories to see some of the history of some of these different companies that we're told to just totally be cool with. Totally don't ever have any concerns about anything they've ever done. Here's a Corporate Research Project, nonprofit center that assists community, environmental, and labor organizations in researching and analyzing companies and industries. So it sounds like a good progressive little outlet. This is by Philip Matera. It says Pfizer made itself the largest pharmaceutical company in the world in large part by purchasing its competitors. They have, in the area of product, in 2009, the company had to pay a record $2.3 billion deal to settle federal charges that one of its subsidiaries had illegally marketed a painkiller called Bextra. So we just talked about that one. In the area of product safety, Pfizer's biggest scandal involved defective heart valves sold by its Shiley subsidiary that led to the deaths of more than 100 people. During the investigation of the matter, information came to light suggesting that the company had deliberately misled regulators about the hazards. Wow. So Pfizer deliberately misled regulators about the hazards of a heart valve? Oh, that's good to remember that. Pfizer also inherited safety and other legal controversies through its big acquisitions, including a class action suit over Warner Lambert's Resilin diabetes medication, a big settlement over PCB dumping by Pharmacia, and thousands of lawsuits brought by users of Wyeth's diet drugs. Also on Pfizer's list of scandals are a 2012 bribery settlement, massive tax avoidance, and lawsuits alleging that during a meningitis epidemic in Nigeria in the 90s, the company tested a risky new drug on children without consent from their parents. Wow, that's very nice of them. But the media now tells us, oh, they're totally, squeaky clean, never had a problem in their life. During the mid-1980s, watchdog organizations such as the Public Citizens Health Research Group charged that Pfizer's widely prescribed arthritis drug, Feldene, created a high risk of gastrointestinal bleeding among the elderly, but the federal government, despite reports of scores of fatalities, declined to put restrictions on the medication. A June 86 article in The Progressive about Feldene was headlined Death by Prescription. The Food and Drug Administration expressed greater concern about reports of dozens of fatalities linked to these heart valves made by Pfizer's Shiley division. In 86, as the death toll reached 125, Pfizer ended production on all the models of the valves. Yet by that point, they were implanted in tens of thousands of people who worried that the devices could fracture and fail at any moment. In 91, an FDA task force charged that Shiley had withheld information about safety problems from regulators in order to get initial approval for its valves, and that the company continued to keep the FDA in the dark. A November 7th, 91 investigation in the Wall Street Journal asserted that Shiley had has been deliberately falsifying manufacturing records relating to valve fractures. So they announced that Pfizer would spend up to $205 million to settle the tens of thousands of valve lawsuits that had been filed against it. Even so, Pfizer resisted complying with an FDA order that it notified patients of new findings that there was a greater risk of fatal fractures in those who had the valve installed before the age of 50. In 94, the company agreed to pay $10.7 million to settle the Justice Department charges that it lied to regulators in seeking approval for the valves. It also agreed to pay $9 million to monitor valve patients at Veterans Administration hospitals or pay for removal of the device. Let's take a break and return on A Neighbor's Choice.
Politics these days are just that, politics. Pathetic discussions about things that don't matter, while the pandemic, crime, and economic disparity march on. That's why you need a balanced approach to news, business, and entertainment in the state of Florida. That publication is newstalkflorida.com. Whether it's the White House, the courthouse, or your neighbor's house, News Talk Florida has the sources, articles, video, and audio that will be a must daily check-in from your laptop or mobile device. Take a look at newstalkflorida.com. Today's news and entertainment with a Florida.
Ex-cop Derek Chauvin found guilty on all counts in the Minneapolis police custody death of George Floyd. The verdict read by Judge Peter Cahill minutes ago.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
All 3 counts: second-degree murder, guilty; third-degree murder, guilty; second-degree manslaughter, guilty. Guilty on all counts in the police custody death of George Floyd, the man whose neck was under Chauvin's knee in an infamous viral video. Outside the courthouse, no emotion showed by Chauvin in the courtroom, but outside, Floyd supporters. Chauvin is 45. He could be sent to prison for decades. The jury of 6 white people and 6 black or multiracial ones came back with its verdict after about 10 hours of deliberations. They asked no questions, asked for nothing to be read back. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm your host, David Gronowski, here as we continue our look at some of the history of mainstream media reporting on major pharmaceutical corporations who they paint as villains when they want to sell a narrative that the state is our all-knowing, all-seeing, all-caring, omnipotent nanny. But when it's time to push people into, state-managed medicine, like in this current time that we're in, these companies suddenly become like, it's like we're supposed to forget all the media reporting that we've seen over the years. So let's go back to this story in Corporation Research nonprofit group. It says, in 2004, in the wake of revelations about dangerous side effects of Merck's painkiller Vioxx, Pfizer agreed to suspend television advertising for a related medication called Celebrex. The following year, Pfizer admitted that a 1999 clinical trial found that elderly patients taking Celebrex had a greater elevated risk of heart problems. In 2005, Pfizer withdrew another painkiller, Bextra, from the market after the FDA mandated a black box warning about the cardiovascular and gastrointestinal risks of the medication. In 2008, Pfizer announced that it was setting aside $894 million to settle the lawsuits that had been filed in connection with Bextra and Celebrex. So, I mean, we'll continue to report these stories that have been in the mainstream media, and we'll continue to talk about their role. Here's a story in CBS News that we were sent. This is in 2019. Again, part of our great remembering of pharmaceutical news reporting in the TV party press. Judge orders Johnson & Johnson to pay Oklahoma $572 million for fueling state's opioid crisis. An Oklahoma judge found Johnson & Johnson guilty in fuel. And remember, Johnson & Johnson, the media now tells you, just go take their vaccine, Don't you ever doubt anything. You don't got any choice in the matter. You're just supposed to just do whatever these giant, you just do whatever these giant media outlets tell you, whatever their pharmaceutical companies. So Johnson & Johnson's got one of them. But here's the story by CBS News that Johnson & Johnson was found guilty in fueling the state's opioid crises and ordered the corporation to pay $572 million in a landmark ruling with vast implications. The ruling by Cleveland County District Judge Thad Balkman in favor of the state against Johnson & Johnson is one of the biggest monetary awards in U.S. history. So the judge said that Johnson & Johnson bears responsibility for helping to fuel the state's opioid epidemic by aggressively marketing painkillers. Judge Balkman took about a month to make this judgment after a 7-week trial. We showed how the company repeatedly ignored warnings by the federal government and its own scientific advisors about the dangers of its drugs and the risks of marketing its products the way it did. We have proven that Johnson & Johnson have built its billion-dollar brand out of greed and on the backs of pain and suffering of innocent people. Okay, so go ahead and remember that when the media tries to bully you into not having human free agency, okay? Just remember what governments already say about them and what CBS News reported about them 2 years ago and what a judge ruled about them, okay? Don't let people gaslight you into forgetting, people's own reports. The same news outlets that tell you now that you have no choice but to do exactly what the herd does. Here's a progressive media outlet, Trofire.com, says Johnson & Johnson sets aside billions as cancer lawsuits continue to escalate. Via America's Lawyer, Johnson & Johnson reserves almost $4 billion to settle tens of thousands of lawsuits over its cancer-causing baby powder. Attorney Stephen Longo updates about it. So the $4 billion. $4 billion. So that's what Johnson & Johnson. This is facts. You could go look at these media outlet stories and see them. So just remember these stories. This is just the beginning. We're going to try to get as many of these stories as we can. And when you guys send them in, that helps us too, figure out which ones we want to get to first. But that's just that's the reality that we want you to remember is don't let media bully you into conforming to whatever herd mentality they think you have to have. You can take care of your body the way you see fit. You don't have to be bullied into conforming to the herd. It's so important that we think for ourselves and that we don't let media and government, intimidate us into doing things that we don't feel comfortable doing. It's your choice what you want to do, but don't let people bully you into doing things. Here's Bernie Sanders. He just said the jury verdict delivers accountability for Derek Chauvin, but not justice for George Floyd. Real justice for him and too many others can only happen when we build a nation that fundamentally respects the human dignity of every person. Now, I talk about human dignity of every person. So that's true. That's a good statement to say. But problem is his actions don't confirm that kind of mentality because his actions are all about collectivism rather than personhood. So you cannot have respect for personhood when you want to have democratic socialism, which is basically just corporate fascism like Bernie Sanders pushes. That just sees human beings as expendable cogs in some kind of collectivist body rather than being truly sovereign and protected from collective violence. Again, that's what politicians do. They use rhetoric. You say, yeah, that feels so right. I talk about we need to have a society based on human dignity of the person, right? But they say that and then they do totally different stuff that just destroys and grinds up human persons left and right. So what do you think of this verdict here in the Derek Chauvin trial? There's a lot of hot opinions flying all over the internet for this, and it's one of those things that, again, it's hard to bring reason when people are so stoked by politicians to find some kind of political narrative that justifies their own self in a horrible tragedy like someone losing their life. And so, yeah, it's when you deal with these stories, it's always easy to just jump in and pick a side and then start demonizing the other. It takes a whole nother power to be able to say, hey, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to actually look for the facts. And that's why we bring on people like Detective John Beza, retired detective, former undercover narcotics detective, to give us analysis of these types of stories. Chowhound, a commenter on our YouTube stream, says, this is a chance for Christian witness to shine, to not participate in the mob's bloodlust. And Gokata says, amen to that. Another commenter says, I guess murder has been redefined. So, there's, again, Detective John Beza, he did in his own analysis of the facts as an expert witness in these cases, and he said he didn't think that a murder charge would be the right charge here, but that they were guilty of at least manslaughter or something maybe beyond that. So, again, these things are complicated, and that's why these trials should have the least amount of political pressure as possible. But that's, of course, the abstract ideal, but in a world where everything is so politicized, so tribal, so passion-filled, so politically calculating, that doesn't actually end up happening, does it? You end up getting situations where everybody wants to use these trials, which are supposed to be based on looking at the facts, to serve their political interests. So some people are saying that Chauvin was a sacrificial scapegoat to appease the crowds from, burning people's cities, that he needed to take, even if, that he needed to take the hit so that the rest of society would not be set up in flames with people's lives lost, especially when the media is reporting the jurors' personal information. When you have politicians saying, go and get it and, hold these people accountable, and being very aggressive, and the president weighing in, and then you're a juror, right? And now you know that your information potentially has been put out in the public, and that your life could be lost if you don't go along with what the media and the politicians are telling you to do. And so that makes it difficult, I think, to have an ability to have impartial jury. But at the same time, I do think that there was clearly wrongdoing in this situation by Derek Chauvin and the rest of the people there. So again, I'm not going to comment on things beyond my expertise. I bring on the people with real skin in the game, the detectives, the police, folks who are in prison. We bring on the people who actually have experience with these situations to give us their analysis. And we stick to principles, and we use that as our basis to comment on what happened. So hopefully this is a time in which people can really come together and start really taking police over-militarization seriously, and start reforming the way that we handle executing all these different laws that we should be getting off the books in the first place. So we should be getting rid of the nonviolent crime laws, victimless crime laws, and that would solve 90%, I think, of the violent situations that occur in different cities around this country. So we'll take a break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice. If you have any comments about the trial or anything else going on, drop your comments on the YouTube stream, on the Facebook video stream, or call us at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040.
this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania Catania personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman. The Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg is on SportsTalkFlorida.com. Live from pit lane to the checkered flag. Watch the pre-race show with hosts Art Edmonds, Eric Casillas, Viorica Bruni, and Mike Straka. All the action can be seen on SportsTalkFlorida.com and Fight TV. Featuring NTT IndyCar drivers Graham Rahal, Joseph Newgarden, Pato O'Ward, plus more. Plus, see celebrity guests from Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, champion boxers, MMA fighters, film producer Dan Myrick, and broadcasters associated with IndyCar racing. Catch all the action with celebrity chefs and the man responsible for bringing IndyCar racing to Florida, former St. Pete Mayor Rick Baker. Sunday, April 25th from 10 a.m. till noon. Broadcast to air on SportsTalkFlorida.com and Fight TV. Catch all the action and interviews starting at 10 right here on AM 820, 96.7 FM Tampa, 98.3 FM Pinellas.
Returns. So let's look at some other stories going on too. We've got this story in Yahoo News. Justice Department files complaint against unproven COVID treatment promoted by Steve Bannon. This is by Oliver O'Connell. And it says the DOJ has filed a civil complaint against the makers of an alleged treatment for COVID-19 promoted by Steve Bannon on his website. He appears and ads on his website for the War Room Defense Pack, which pairs vitamin D3 and zinc pills under the slogans, "You can't fight if you're sick," and the ultimate defense against sickness. Manufactured by Wellness Warrior, the tablets come with a free copy of War Room's Defense Guide, emblazoned with a photo of Mr. Bannon and his War Room Pandemic podcast logo featuring the biohazard symbol and the Chinese flag. Named as defendants in the Justice Department's case are Eric Anthony and Nepute and Quickwork LLC, doing business as Wellness Warrior. Mr. Bannon is not named in the suit. So, that's what the DOJ does. Anybody who, is associated with Trump, they will prosecute anything they can, or, anything they can to put all their attention onto. And I don't know the particulars of that product, but it's interesting how, vitamin D3 and zinc are good things that people need to get. And there's obviously people getting, if you're in a environment and a climate where there's a lack of sunshine, then you probably do need to take D3. And I say that as someone who's not selling you any D3. Okay. But it's important for people to get sunshine. It's important for people to get fresh air, and zinc is another thing. A lot of people are deficient in zinc. They're deficient in vitamin D3. But government, think about it from government standpoint. Who patents vitamin D3? Oh, nobody? Okay. Who patents zinc? Are they a giant corporation like Pfizer? They can throw out $894 million and $1 billion here and there as settlements for crooked stuff. That Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, no. So who patents a natural substance like vitamin D3 or zinc? So who would be the client in that case? Think about it from government standpoint. Who's the client? Nature? Well, they act like they're taking care of nature with their Green New Deal stuff, but then we find out when we watch Michael Moore's Planet of the Humans that much of the green industry stuff is scams that are not actually real green. They're not real clean energy. They're just garbage, fake clean energy. So no, they fail at that too. So just always ask yourself, if you're saying, why is it government allows these giant corporations to push all these different things and then give them little slaps on the wrist when they get in trouble, but then they really go after, things like vitamin D3 and zinc and stuff like that. And I don't know what the claims are being made or whatever, but it's just interesting that if you don't have a powerful client, then who's the customer? I mean, the government serves their clients. Then their clients are giant corporations who often staff the regulators and help write the laws. And they have an impenetrable wall around DC of these special interests that take care of their interests. And government serves as a vessel for that, right? So that's what you get. Is it really that more complicated than that? If you don't have nothing to pay them, then how are you expecting to get any representation? And I'm talking to you, the average person. I mean, you provide your taxes and so forth, but that's why countries that, invest the most in DC think tanks and so forth get the best media coverage. And countries that invest the least into DC and politicians and so forth get the worst, that you're told every day how those countries are problems and so forth. And maybe they do have problematic governments. But the point is, whether a country has a problematic government or a dangerous dictator is not the determining factor as to whether your television will tell you to hate them and be afraid of them or not. It's based on who is paying the think tanks, the universities, the politicians, and so on and so forth. It's a pay-to-play enterprise in DC. And that's sad that it has to be that way. It's sad that so much of our life has to be wasted dealing with the crookedness coming out of that nonsense. But it is a reality that we as adults have to face and persist in moving past as fast as possible by looking towards nonviolent, creative solutions outside of politics for our answers. And so that's what we're going to continue to do on this program. We don't believe that DC or politics can be redeemed if we just elect a new team or throw out the other rascals or so forth. That's what they've been doing all along. And as we heard with Colonel Doug McGregor on the program yesterday, here's someone that came in there to execute Trump's plan to leave Afghanistan, but somehow the personnel, including the Secretary of State, didn't want that to happen. And so it didn't happen, right? And so that's what you get. Even when you vote for someone, they said, remember with Barack Obama, everybody voted for him as the peace candidate, and all he did was expand wars. Okay? So that's what you get. Speaker Pelosi, let's look at what she's got to say. She's always got something to say. She's got a comment here. Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice. Because of you and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous with justice. So that's the religiosity. Remember, Pelosi knows a lot about sacrifice because she talks about her sacred temple, the Capitol building, right? And what that represents. And what makes a place sacred, of course, is having the exclusive monopoly on sacrifice. And what is sacrifice? What countries can we sacrifice? Which people can we throw away in prison? Which people who have horrible injustices done to them should be praised as sacred and which should be forgotten? Ashley Babbitt was shot for no reason. There was no reason to shoot her in the neck by the Capitol Police. She shouldn't have been trespassing there, but you don't shoot someone in the neck for that. But because she was there in support of Donald Trump, that is not a human being that Nancy Pelosi will speak of in any kind of dignified or positive light. But because she feels that she can get more power, it's like these people are constantly starved for power. They're like zombies, I need power at all times. I can never have enough. So because that she can use the narrative of George Floyd to raise money and power for giant corporations and banks and masters of war, she will try to, again, I told you they're going to do this. They just tried to put their religious narrative on top of an innocent man dying. I don't think George Floyd should have died. I don't think he should have been in that situation. I think they kind of had a different way. But she's going to use that as someone who is sitting on her hands doing nothing to stop all kinds of stories like George Floyd that happened under her watch over her career. She's done nothing to stop. How many people have suffered and died in Syria, Libya, Yemen because of Nancy Pelosi, in Iraq, Afghanistan? She doesn't care. She just keeps pushing for that stuff whenever that's what she needs. She don't care. It's out of sight, out of mind. What's their political capital? But when someone's death can be used by media for her power, it's a sacrifice. Isn't that sad? See, everything you see in the news is swimming in the fishbowl that Jesus created. It's all about sacrifice. That's the narrative. Sacrifice. Jesus said sacrifice is finished. It's over. But a lot of people don't want to admit that they got that memo. And so they want us to believe that we can continue to sacrifice one for the greater good. But sacrifice is not acceptable. That is not the way we do things. We have self-sacrifice. And that does not include what we see from D.C. Nancy Pelosi and what she represents the old order of using sacrificial violence for some greater good. But in reality, that greater good is a lie because it doesn't help the masses. The things that she does, the bailouts for the banks, the attacks against innocent people's lives, she's doing nothing to stop regulations. She's doing nothing to stop the Federal Reserve looting the purchasing power of millions of people, just like George Floyd, who are in a situation where they need serious financial opportunity and prosperity, but they've been crippled because of the corporate fascism of Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't care about the people that are in slavery right now in Libya because of what she and Barack Obama and others did to loot the country of Libya. She doesn't care. She cares about lying to low information people to perpetuate her power lust. But that's the old way, and it will fail. And we will continue to move on to a better place. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.
1040.
It's the only way I get news.